So yeah, looking forward to Kelly's conversation on amplifying your peer-to-peer fundraising effectiveness. So
Hi, Candace.
hey, Kelly.
How's it going?
Good. How's your day going?
Wonderful. Better now that I heard Floyd talk. That was amazing.
I
I
know,
really
Floyd
enjoyed that.
is so amazing. So I'm so excited to have you back again. The wellness session yesterday was fantastic, and yeah, excited to hear all of the tactics that you have to share. So
Awesome.
thank you for joining us again.
Great. Well, let me start sharing my screen. Okay. So we are going to talk about how to amplify your peer-to-peer success by empowering your participants. So I think this will actually pair really well with Floyd's presentation. So he talked about like the whole campaign. One of the things I really like to focus on is how we empower our participants to fundraise for us, which is really key to your peer-to-peer success. Just a little bit about me in case you didn't hear me talk yesterday. I have been in the nonprofit industry for about a decade. I've been working with small to medium-sized nonprofits, and I've worked on a number of peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns for a variety of sizes of groups. And I've started to say, I think, peer-to-peer is one of my true loves in the fundraising world. So I really, really love doing the peer-to-peer. I'm excited to be here today because my favorite peer-to-peer platform is CauseVox. So I love using their platform for my campaigns. I recommend it to everybody I work with. So yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you all today. So I like to start out thinking about peer-to-peer, any campaign that you're doing, thinking about you have two primary growth options when it comes to peer-to-peer fundraising. You can recruit more and more participants every year to keep growing, or you can have the same number of participants raising more money per person per year. And I want to ask everybody, which sounds easier to you? You can put it in the chat box if you want. Let me know. What sounds easier to you, number one or number two? Candace, do you have a read on?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of twos, some ones, a few ones
Okay.
in there.
Okay. All right. So number two, if you voted number two, I would agree with you on that. I tend to think if you can keep the same people signing up every single year and teach them year after year, hold their hands and teach them how to be really excellent fundraisers, it makes your life a lot easier. So that's what this presentation is about. When I work with organizations, I see a lot, or when I'm looking out in the peer-to-peer space, I see a lot of organizations doing peer-to-peer that just expect participants to know how to do it. And I think we find fundraising really intuitive because we are fundraisers. But I don't know if the general public kind of gets it. So we're asking a lot of the people who are signing up to participate. We're asking them to solicit their friends and family members for our cause. We actually are asking a significant amount of them. And I like to use this example, no shade on anybody, but I'm a runner and I love signing up for charity 5Ks because I like doing it, and I like my running to support good causes. It helps me continue to train because I know I'm training for a good cause. So it's, if you watched my presentation yesterday, it's my self-care and how I give back to my community sometimes. So I love signing up for fundraising races, and I signed up one year for an organization whose mission really super resonated with me. I'd never heard of them before, but when I saw them on a list of local races, I read about their mission. I just thought, oh my gosh, this is an organization I want to raise money for them. I was hoping I'd get some material or some support after I signed up to fundraise, but instead I got 2 emails in the course of 6 weeks simply asking me to fundraise and not giving me any tools on how to do it. And I'm a fundraiser. I'm a professional fundraiser. But did I fundraise for them? I did not, because I'm also busy. And all of your donors and volunteers and board members are, and we have limited time and attention. So I was not able at that time to invest the time and attention to learn about their mission and to craft emails and social media posts or do any of that fundraising for them. I needed it handed to me, and I'm a professional fundraiser, right? So I want you, if you've done a peer-to-peer, I want you to think about it for a minute, like really hard think about it. Would you be able to fundraise with the information that you're giving to your participants? So think about that if you didn't know your organization. So here are some materials. That I find critical to empowering your participants. You need a fundraising site. CauseVox is an excellent platform that helps you create that. Your fundraising guide, Floyd talked about this a little bit, but I'll dive in a little bit more on what you can put in that fundraising guide. A social media kit. I love doing coaching emails with my participants, and I'll explain what those are. Recruiting materials, and also post-event materials. So after the event, a lot of the times we're thinking about getting to the event, right? And then the event happens, we're like, yay, it's done. But we need to spend some time afterwards on these post-event materials, creating these connections to our fundraisers so that they do sign up next year, so that you're not starting all over again with a new batch of people. My computer wants to skip 2 every time I press forward. So things to keep in mind as you design. How do you create a through line from the first communication, priming your people for the event, through to the last email you send them post-event? So my recommendation is when you're crafting these materials that you craft them all at one time. I know that sounds huge, like a huge, huge task, but really that's gonna allow you to tell a story, weave a story through all of your campaign emails. And we as fundraisers, I think we're also storytellers, right? So think about that as you're creating all of these materials. If I get this material, will it sound like this material that I get in response, and all of that kind of stuff. So you want to build it into a cohesive campaign. So think about it this way. You send a launch email saying, hey, would you sign up for our peer-to-peer event? They click on the email to sign up. They want to see on that site, that messaging on that site needs to be similar to what was in the email. When they sign up on that site, they should get a responder that says, hey, thanks for signing up. The first thing you can do, here's your first step. And then each step later builds on that. So you're creating a narrative. And what I like to think about is in each step, each thing, I'm going to ask them to do one discrete thing that I know will help them become a successful fundraiser. Copywriting is beyond the scope of what I want to cover today, because I could do a whole other webinar on copywriting. But Tom Ahern's book, How to Write Fundraising Materials That Raise More Money, is an excellent, excellent resource. I read it, I think, in about 2 or 3 hours. And it's still something, I read it 10 years ago in 2 hours, and it's something I still reference because it's that helpful a book. So let's start with your fundraising site. This is your hub. This is where all of your materials and information for the donors should be. And what needs to be on your fundraising site? Well, this is again why I love CauseVox, because they make sure that it's really, really easy and intuitive to use. So it checks a lot of the boxes here, just if you set it up following their template. But one, a compelling video or a photo. I love video, and I think for motivating people, I think we often think of these really polished, you know, the television ads that we see for nonprofits, but it really doesn't have to be that. The video that you see kind of topping this example is we created, really we had an intern with their iPhone going around interviewing people who did our event the year before, and then we spliced it all together with these nice sound bites about everybody sharing why they were doing our event and why they supported our organization. And we just spliced that together in iMovie and made a video. Is it high tech? No. Is it polished? No. Do all of our donors love it? Yes. So it doesn't have to be really high quality, really polished. It just has to have a lot of heart. Convincing copy, asking people to sign up and to donate. Remember that on your fundraising site, you're getting both donors and participants. So you want to have a little bit of each of those things on the site. Some basic information or a video about your organization, so that you can't see it on this sample, but it was lower down on the page, was a little video about our organization. Having your fundraising tools and fundraising information on the page is critical. I like to actually, so if you're looking at this sample, right here we've got how to send in a check, because we had a lot of older donors who did not want to give online, so we wanted to make it really easy for them to see where to send a check. But if you had scrolled down this page, right below that was our fundraising toolkit and our social media kit and all of that. So it was really easy for folks to find. There needs to be an obvious place to sign up. That's again where I love CauseVox. They make it really, really obvious where you can sign up. I also like to say you need to put an obvious contact somewhere. There is something in the footer, but I like to put it up higher as well. And I like to make sure it's not info at or hello at your organization. I like it to be Kelly at, whatever organization, because that puts a face. There's actually a name. There's somebody going to answer this email if I send it. So it actually helps make sure that people who are seeking help, who do want support, know that there's actually a person on the other side answering that email. And then, as I said, putting somewhere where people can provide offline donations. Some organizations I've worked with wanted a form to make sure that they could designate it to the correct fundraiser. So a way to provide offline donations that works for your organization and make sure that's prominent, because there are still donors that don't trust online or don't prefer to give that way. And you want to make sure you're still capturing them. So then we got your fundraising guide. And how I came to the fundraising guide was actually when I started planning my first peer-to-peer campaign, when I was very new to this. It was an organization that had done this peer-to-peer campaign for quite a few years, and it grew and grew and grew and grew and then plateaued for a number of years. And I was hired to make it start growing again. And so what I did was I interviewed previous participants and asked them, how could we get you to fundraise more? How can we make sure you sign up? Because you didn't sign up last year. And what I heard over and over again in these interviews with the participants was the organization only seems to care that I sign up. So I don't fundraise because I'm not getting support after that. Or I heard I'm not a fundraiser, I don't know what to do. Or the one that really, really resonated with me was somebody who said, I don't want to come up with content and copy. You do that. I'm happy to share it on my social channels, but don't make me create content. And that is what gave rise to the fundraising guide and our social media toolkit. And that's what I will show you. If my computer will let me. All right, so things to include in your fundraising guide. You need an inspiring message. I like to start all of my guides with something that is effusive. Thank you so much for signing up. Because of you, X, Y, and Z will happen. Or last year we raised this much and we're able to accomplish this. And this year our target is even higher because we're facing even greater challenges. That type of message, that rah, rah, let's do this, is a great thing for people to see. And I like to put that at the very beginning so that if people are going to read nothing else, they get this nice rah, rah, thanks, you're amazing and wonderful kind of message. Then right after that, I follow that with a checklist of things to do. So if they read nothing else, I want them to read the inspiring message and the checklist. And then the rest is kind of gravy if they read it. But beyond that, I like to put in key dates. So things like giving days, whether you're doing Giving Tuesday or a special giving day to your local community, anything like that. Then key tips and tricks, things that maybe are unique to your audience or just good social media practice. I like to have a section about the organization, and that I like to, depending on the organization and how familiar I think our fundraisers are with the organization, I like to make that either more robust or a little shorter. So for this organization, we got a lot of people who signed up just because they wanted to jump in the river in January and didn't know much about our organization. So that section was a number of pages that was about the organization, that had key facts, information on our programming, on our goals, on how we operated and how they could get involved with our advocacy work. For the last one that you saw, the tortoise and hare, that was for a school. Most of the fundraisers were the parents or the children, and they know their school. So that section was significantly less robust in that, because we didn't feel like we really needed to explain the organization to the people who were participating. Then an FAQ, whether about the organization or about fundraising. Sometimes I do both, sometimes it's one or the other. And then I like to include templates for emails and for phone calls for our participants. And I do always include a call script. I know tons of people don't like making calls to ask for money, but if people do, it is the most effective way to fundraise, right? In person or calls are still one of the best ways to fundraise, to get the most money out of asks. So I like to ensure there's a call script just in case I have somebody who likes to be on the phone, right? So this is the page of, this is kind of the step-by-step guide, the checklist. So if nothing else, this is what you need in your fundraising guide. Usually my steps include some sort of process like this. So step 1, create your fundraising page, and I'll have some information about what they should do on that page. Step 2, make the first donation to your page. And I like to explain there, we as fundraisers know that if you're going to solicit people for money, you should probably have donated to the organization. But that's not common knowledge, even though we feel like it's pretty well known, right? So telling people, being the first to contribute to your race lets your contacts know that you're financially invested in this effort, and it means that you can explain the donation process if people ask questions. I like to point that out to all of my fundraisers, and I think without that step, you get a lot of people who sign up and then start asking people for money. But it's actually really powerful when they give their first donation. Then when they ask friends for money, their friends are not hitting their Facebook page saying 0, and they're going, well, why should I give to you? Nobody else has. Fundraising is kind of a peer pressure thing, especially in peer-to-peer. So that putting your money where your mouth is really powerful. Step 3, I say ask your closest family and friends first. And sometimes I'll give them a target number. Ask the 5 people you think are most likely to support you. For this was a school fundraiser, so think grandparents, aunts, uncles, close friends who want to support you and your child. So I like to give that number so it's not overwhelming. Go ask 20 people. No, just 5 people. And also, if you're a fundraiser, you know, normally we start campaigns, right? There's a quiet phase of a campaign, and then you do a public launch so that when you launch your campaign, you're not at 0 when you publicly launch it. I'm trying to think of how do we take best practice in fundraising and boil it down to an individual participant in a peer-to-peer campaign. So that's where ask your friends and family first is really helpful. Because then when they put it on social media, ideally they've had these 5 people contribute and support their peer-to-peer campaign. So it looks successful already, right? And so then people get excited and they want to give. Then the social media toolkit. One other point on the fundraising guide. They don't have to be professionally designed. All of the ones that you saw, those were designed by me in Canva. And so if you saw the presentation on Canva yesterday, Canva is super easy to use. It's free to nonprofits, and it can make wonderful graphics. So everything you see here, I created in Canva. So you don't have to hire a designer to do it. A social media toolkit. So as I noted, the thing I kept hearing when I was interviewing peer-to-peer participants were, you are the experts in your issue, so why do I have to figure out how to pitch your organization? And that really resonated with me because I'm the fundraiser. I'm pitching my organization all day, every day, right? But you know, one of our volunteers who comes to one advocacy meeting or one volunteer meeting or something every month they're not thinking about your organization all day, every day. So that's where the social media toolkit comes in. And Floyd talked about this a little bit too. I like to give people, here, take this photo and put this text on Facebook. And this image is optimized for Twitter. And here's a Twitter length message that you can put on Twitter if that's more your thing, or Instagram or anything like that. Remember, different people are into different social media channels, so it's worth maybe surveying your participants to see what would be most helpful for them. So as you can see here, these are two different types of social media content I like to provide. So one, the climate fact. So this was for a climate change organization. And we did a bunch of climate facts. And then similarly, we did an our impact image. So we tied the prior year's event to some of our outcomes the following year, just to make people who fundraised for us feel like they were a part of that impact. But also, don't be afraid to get funny. We were doing this campaign right when Game of Thrones was huge and Game of Thrones was about to start. And so we did this winter is coming GIF that like went gangbusters in our community. So that was quite fun too. So you can have mission-driven things, you can have impact-driven things, but you can also, if it's within the kind of feel of your organization, you can get funny and creative about it too. So coaching emails, this is something that I got so much positive feedback on from participants the first time I did it. And so it's something I recommend to all people doing peer-to-peer campaigns. So the first email is the responder. So somebody signs up. A lot of the time we send a responder that says, thanks so much. So what you want to do is use that responder. They have just signed up. They are motivated. So the autoresponder, when they sign up, I like to say on that, I like to say, hey, make a donation to your campaign and download my fundraising guide and read it. And so those are two actions they can take immediately. And I'm taking the energy that they're bringing for signing up and saying, okay, great, that's amazing. You're so amazing. Do this next. Like while they're in the moment still thinking about it. And then you have two options after that. You can automate emails in a series that go from their sign up if you're paying for that level of MailChimp or anything like that. Or you can just send weekly tips. So one campaign, I always sent it Friday at around lunchtime because I'm thinking it's the end of the week. They can use the weekend. I'm going to see if they're on their lunch break and they'll read the email. So every Friday I would send a coaching email. And then in each of the coaching emails, you ask participants to do one thing to advance their fundraising. I think that's something that is really critical, is when you overwhelm people, that's, you get this paralysis because they're like, well, what do you want me to do? There are 10 million things. I can't do all of these things. So, but one thing once a week is something you can absolutely ask people to do. And be very clear, give examples, give instructions. If it's send an email to all your friends, have a template, make it as copy and pastable as you possibly can. And then what I like to do is, after the campaign has been going for a little bit, I like to check in with my top performers and ask them for tips and ask them what's working. And that is so great on so many levels because my best fundraisers are hearing from me personally. They're getting a congratulations. They're feeling connected to the organization. They feel appreciated. And that makes them want to do more. And ideally do it again the next year. And then the second thing is I get them to reflect on what they did well. A lot of times when I make these calls, I say, why do you think that went so well? And they go, oh, I don't know. And then I'll get a click and say, oh, because some that I got were, I said I'd dress up my cat as a reindeer and put it on social media if I got $500, and all my friends apparently wanted to see my cat in a reindeer suit. That's not something that would have ever occurred to me to fundraise around, but it worked for her community. And it was nice to have her realize that, because one, next year she can use it again. And two, I included that in a coaching email. So she saw that and she actually emailed me and said, oh, that was my tip. Thanks for sharing that. I hope it works for other people. So it's creating a great connection with your best fundraisers. and then you're helping your other fundraisers. So this is what the coaching emails look like. And I know this is a little segmented. It was all in one email. But I would start the coaching email with some kind of rah, here we hit this percentage, or this one you can see was about Giving Tuesday and how much we raised on Giving Tuesday. And then there's the plunge tip of the week. It's very clear of what I wanted them to do. Then the tip from a fellow plunger is included in there. And then we started doing closer to the end of the campaign was this Take the Plunge Extra challenge. So there was one more thing if people were highly motivated that they could do. And then the other thing we did was we sold placement in these emails to our sponsors. So it was an additional revenue generation tool for us. So then the post-event emails. I sent thank yous customized to participants and donors. For both, I like to send an email the day after the event, a week after the event, and a month after the event. Or if you're not doing an event, after the last day of your campaign. And then between the end of that campaign and the start of the next one the following year, we sent quarterly updates and reports. Thanks to you, because you did the plunge, we were able to accomplish whatever we'd accomplished in that quarter. So it was still year round. These people are hearing from us saying, thanks for doing this. Thanks for raising money for us. And when they get that email in July and make them remember that that was such a fun thing they did, and they're hearing, thank you again, we accomplished this because of you. They get those warm fuzzies all over again, so that when we launch in September, October, they were ready to sign up because they'd been hearing from us on a consistent basis. So we also did emails and photos. So one thing I would tell you, if you're doing an event, have a volunteer or hire a photographer to take photos, because it can make a huge difference. So this is an example of the post-event email that we sent to our donors. So if you have MailChimp or other email options that allow you to customize, you can customize this to a really great degree. So we have Dear, their first name, and then we said on January 27th, Plunger's name jumped into the Potomac River. We put that because, one, we wanted to create the affinity. And then for another email later, we said, John, Plunger's name, cares about the climate, and they took action, and you did too, and you and John are our heroes. And so by using that person, maybe the donor doesn't have an affinity to our organization, but they do to the plunger. Or to John in this example. And so consistently saying, like, you love John and we love John. So maybe we have something in common, was just a great way to get buy-in from our donors, because we wanted to make sure that they donated again next year when John asked them for money. And then we said we kind of wanted to give them a sense of the scope. And also we put together a Flickr page because we had a volunteer that took photos. And I told her, your job is to go around and make sure there is one photo of every person here. And she did an admirable job at that. And we put that in the Flickr so that everybody had a picture. Every donor would see the person they donated to in that photo album somewhere. So the big takeaway I want you to get out of this is you need to be the guide for your participants. Fundraising, even though we're fundraisers and we don't find fundraising scary, a lot of people find fundraising quite scary. So the easier you make it and the more actionable you make it, the easier and the more action you're gonna get. So making it easy, if anything is complicated, takes too long, confuses them in the process, you're gonna lose people. So making it as clear and easy and one step at a time as you can is what you've gotta aim for. And then, like I said, make it actionable, make it copy pastable, make it, one thing I got from somebody once was, put this in your Twitter. And then I went to put it in my Twitter and it was too long for Twitter. And then I had to edit it. Just simple things like that cause drop off. So make sure that you're really attentive, put it in Twitter, make sure it will fit those kinds of things. Make sure the image is optimized so it doesn't look silly, so people want to take it down. Even things like that can cause drop off. So being attentive to those kinds of things and making it easy and actionable is the best way to empower your participants. So a couple do's and don'ts that I've learned over the years and working with different organizations. Do focus on your top performers. Check in, praise them, ask them for their feedback, survey them afterwards to see what worked, what did they like, what did they not like about the process. Don't worry about the people raising nothing. I tend to see organizations really focus on, well, we just need the person who raised 0 to raise 50. And it's like, yeah, but the person who raised 500 could raise 1,000. And at the end of the day, that's going to be more effective. So focus on your top performers and don't worry so much about the people not raising very much. They're probably not that motivated. So do keep things predictable. If you've got a plan, you've written everything, make tweaks and adjustments based on progress or feedback, or if something comes up. For example, when I was working with the climate change organization, that's when Trump pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. We sent the email that week saying, here's special social media and all this kind of stuff that you can use to help generate revenue so that we can stop him from doing that. But we didn't vary from our messaging very much or from the plan. So if you learn something new in the middle of your campaign, that's great. Make a note of it and maybe try and implement it next time, because any radical changes are going to confuse your audience. Oh, that was it. Okay. And so as Candace mentioned at the top of the hour, I am offering a free 1-hour consultation to anybody who attends the summit. And if you're interested in peer-to-peer or learning more or want me to look at your campaign, I would be more than happy to. And like Floyd, I will also plug CauseVox because it's such a great platform, and I will let Candace take it from there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's always great working with you, Kelly. It's so great to have you. What a great presentation. Yeah, so I put in the link to Kelly's consultation in the chat, so feel free to go there. We'll also include that in the follow-up email. And then, yeah, you can use CauseVox to run your peer-to-peer fundraising so that you can raise more with less effort. Very easily, setting up a page, no IT, tech required, and then really, we try to streamline everything to make it as easy as possible for your fundraisers to set up and run their pages. So, yes. So thank you so much, Kelly. We have a lot of time to go over questions. This is great. If anyone does want to get a demo of CauseVox, I put that link in the chat as well. All right. So lots and lots of questions.
Okay, great.
Let's dive into them. So Megan asks, hello, I find with peer-to-peer fundraising, our multi-year participants have exhausted their family, friends, coworkers, etc. Can you speak to getting past donor fatigue?
Okay. So, I think it's helpful it's interesting. I haven't seen that as much. I think it's most helpful to make sure your fundraisers are still excited about it, because I wonder how much of it is donor fatigue and how much is your fundraisers are tired of doing it. And so that's where constant reporting back, getting them involved, surveying them. If you're noticing somebody who raised oodles of money before and they're not raising as much, check in with them, give them a call. The more you can keep it personalized and get that feedback, I think it's valuable, because that's going to, I could give you some things that I might do, but I think you're best to actually ask your people, because who knows, it could be that phone call is enough to get them really excited again, because they got this personal connection with your organization. They got a chance to give you feedback, especially if they give you feedback and they see it being implemented, they're going to feel like they helped make a change or improve your campaign. And so that might be enough to like fan that flame again and get them reignited on your mission and to raise. That's what I would do, I think.
Yeah. Okay, great. No, and that's super helpful. I think that it probably does have something more to do with maybe the fundraisers are like not as amped this year, like, and you can probably spark a lot of life by really getting more details and maybe,
sorry.
No, no.
What I see a lot of the time too is like, when I sign up for races, I know who in my family is going to give to those. And so they just know, like, I'm coming at you in July for this race, or I'm coming at you in May for my daughter's 5K for her school. And so a lot of my family members just kind of know that's what I've done. And so I think it's just, what I find is after a few years, it becomes even more rote. Is I just send them an email and say, hey, it's this event again. Like, do you mind giving? And they've done it before. They're happy to do it again. But yeah, like I said, I think it might be a lot more the fundraiser than the donors.
Yeah. And so Gabrielle asks, are peer-to-peer campaigns more successful for general donations or for an event?
I mostly do events around peer-to-peer. But I actually ran a capital campaign through peer-to-peer, which was really interesting. It was part of the public side of our peer-to-peer, it was the public facing part of our capital campaign. So we had done a lot of fundraising. Up to that point, we were about 50% of our goal. And then we put the campaign on CauseVox, and we had people in the community reach out. It was to replace the seats in an art house cinema in my local community. And so what we did was we fundraised from the big donors till we were about halfway there. And then we calculated out if everybody bought a seat, how much that would cost. And using CauseVox's, impact metrics too, we were able to say, that'll get us to the number of seats we needed. And so we used that for a peer-to-peer, which was maybe a little unconventional to use it for a capital campaign. But so it was, people could reach out to other people in the community and say, like, I bought a seat, I saved my seat, are you going to save your seat? And so that actually worked really, really well for a capital campaign. I think because of the impact metric on CauseVox too, it can be really helpful if you're raising around a specific thing. I think if you're just trying to meet your operations budget, it might be hard to use peer-to-peer. But if you're saying, we're a food kitchen, we need to give away this many meals this month, having that impact metric can be really, really helpful in motivating people to give when there's no event involved.
Yeah. No, super great tips. And okay, so there's another. Ooh, Sherry, this is a great question. How much time is a good length to run a peer-to-peer campaign? Is 1 month too short? 3 months too long?
Okay. That's my favorite question about peer-to-peer. My answer is it depends. It really depends on your organization, how fast you can motivate your fundraisers. That's something, if you'd like to sign up for the consultation, that's something I'd be happy to talk to you about, how to figure that out for your own organization. It also depends on the goal. So if your goal is $100,000, a month might be a little short, but if you have hundreds of people ready to fundraise for you, maybe it's realistic. My daughter's 5K, we only give it a month because we only need to raise $5,000 for the school's scholarship fund. And so normally the event's in mid-April, and I send out an email to all the parents at the beginning of March, and in a month we've raised the money that we needed to raise. But that's because we have, 50 parents raising, and it really doesn't take much from each person to meet our goal. So it's a fair number of people leveraged against a pretty moderate goal. But yeah, so I think that's the biggest metric, is how much are you trying to raise and how many people do you have ready to raise for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Great tips. And okay, sorry, there's a bunch more questions just coming in. So, So Chelsea asks, for their peer-to-peer campaign, they do a hike. They don't have a lot of ways to actually share updates during the live hike. So
Hmm.
what suggestions could you make for something that is maybe a little bit harder to engage online during the actual live event
Ooh,
for
okay.
peer-to-peer?
So you're out in the woods hiking.
Hmm.
Hmm. Okay. So I will share what one race did recently because they had to take it virtual, and that was a big bummer because it's one of my favorite races. And my daughter had signed up to run it with me this year. It was really disappointing when it was canceled. Um, but what they did, I thought it was really, really great, was we were supposed to start running at 8:30 a.m. and they did a Facebook Live starting at about 8:15 that was kind of a pre-race rah rah, thanks for doing this. So normally when they would do the race in person, they would have a couple different people speak about their mission, and a couple different people um, you know they actually led, like, they always had a personal trainer up there that read a like ran a warm up before we all started running and everything. It was a great program before the race. And what they did was they did it on a Facebook live stream. So it was the exact same thing they would have done. But I think they managed it through Zoom and then live streamed to Facebook through Zoom. And so they were able to get everybody who normally would have spoken. They had a local newscaster was the MC, and so he was on his Zoom in his house, and then they had beneficiaries of their programs talking from their houses, and then they had the personal trainer do the warm up for everybody on Zoom, and so they took that program and just broadcasted it to us that way. So I thought that was a great way to do it. And then, yeah, we were on our own during the race because it was a virtual race. So we were just running around our neighborhood instead of with everybody at the race. But it gave you that sense of connection to the organization that for me was what I like about that pre-ceremony anyway. And
Yeah.
so we were able to do that.
That's cool. That's really great. What a great example. I think that like illustrates it a lot because, I think just hearing what other organizations are doing is
Yeah.
really super helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, let's see. Great question. Frederica asked if our organization has never done a peer-to-peer campaign, what is the best way to start? They're a member organization. So for a little bit of
Ooh.
context.
Okay. Well, I taught a peer-to-peer course with CauseVox. It's on their website.
Oh yeah, let's get that.
If you want to link to that, Candace,
Mm-hmm.
that is where I talk more about like the whole, like from starting to plan it to the end, a good process for that. But yeah, if you're wanting to get started, the prep work actually starts with kind of cultivating your people towards the event. So if you have an event in mind, or if you have a campaign in mind, thinking about that, I would say if it's your first time, like back it up about 6 months to create all the materials and then start talking to your people, not about the event necessarily, but start priming them. So like I said, like I said in when I was talking about after a peer-to-peer event, I like to ping my people quarterly just to stay on their radar, keep them engaged, keep them excited, so that when I say, hey, time to sign up, they're ready to do it. They're activated, that it's not a cold touch. It's a nice warm touch. So thinking about that, how do you tell people? Start thinking about, impact metrics and say, to do what we do, we have to raise this much money, and our donors, our members are so critical to that success. Thanks for being a member, and doing some warm touches like that while you plan the campaign. And then once you have the campaign planned, especially if it's your first time, I would say it's really key to get them to make it, like I said, there's no confusion. So make it very clear. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? I would say lots and lots of video explainers instead of text explainers would be really, really key. But again, if you want to talk about this and contact me, I'm happy to go over your specific situation. But yeah, I would recommend the course from CauseVox, and then also just, it doesn't start the minute you launch the campaign. It starts by warming up your people and getting them ready to fundraise for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think there's so many more questions in here. I don't think that we can get to all of them, unfortunately. Let's do one more. So I got Mallory's question here. So my organization's donors are predominantly older. I have provided materials to make posting and sharing easier, but how else do I make peer-to-peer more accessible to them?
Older donors are tricky and peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
So one of the organizations I worked with had older donors, and that's where the bit about, so taking them offline a little bit can be helpful. So instead of forcing people who aren't on social media onto social media, think about where they could be soliciting people. And you know, CauseVox makes it easy when you set up your fundraising page. I mean, it'll be, you know, the campaign link and then /Kelly, you know, and so it's a really easy thing for people to type in. So instead, think about where they already are. They're probably on email. They might like sending letters, you know, support the post office right now. You can pay for stamps, you know. So that's, for older donors, I think that would be, how do you reach them where they are? Make it easy for them to give by giving on a platform like CauseVox. But giving them the tools, not social media tools so much, but email tools, letter tools. We actually did that with one of the organizations I worked with. Was we did provide them a letter to send to people and a offline donation form to fill out to make sure that we could allocate it to the right donor. And we got quite a lot of our money raised that way. So just because online peer-to-peer is facilitated by being online doesn't mean you can't think of offline channels to empower your fundraisers with, to allow them to still raise for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I saw Ellen in the chat said we have offered to set up their personal pages for some of the older members of their community as well, which I think is a good idea.
Yes.
I will say that on CauseVox, we do have a lot of campaigns that are run with mostly board members. And that is typically, you know, a little bit of an older age group that's getting involved. And I've seen a lot of people don't have too much trouble setting up their pages either, though. So I think there's some hesitancy where people also can sometimes, I don't think in whoever submitted the questions case, but sometimes organizations I chat with will hesitate to try peer-to-peer because they don't like trust their older members with the technology. And I'm like, try trusting them like a little bit. Like they're, you know, even we like a lot of tools like CauseVox are really easy to set up. And like you said, like, yeah, they're probably going to share over email. You know, some might have Facebook as well. That's been like pretty growing as well. Yeah,
I would say keep in mind, like a lot of boomers are on Facebook now. The boomer generation is more online. I think after COVID, I think a lot of people who weren't online are online now. So, I mean, it's worth, and again, I will put a plug here again and talk to your people, talk to your participants and see what they need, see what they're comfortable with, and don't just assume because they're older, they're maybe offline. My 85-year-old grandfather is one of the most tech savvy people I know. So you know, there are outliers for every rule. So I mean, talk to your people and see where they're at rather than making any assumptions.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure my grandma was on Facebook way more than I ever am. So you never know. Oh man, it's been so good. And so thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing all these amazing insights and for staying for this great Q&A session. It's been good to just kind of field all these questions. And then, yeah, again, I really encourage everyone, Kelly's amazing offer to book a consultation with her. I recommend you take her up on it. She's fantastic. So many great insights to share. And yeah, I put links in the chat to the advanced peer-to-peer fundraising course that Kelly also ran with us a few months back. You can take a look at that. We had all these insights and many more. I also put the link to Kelly's toolkit examples, which I had dug up from an old email while you were chatting.
Good. Yeah.
So you can access that as well. And yeah, so a few people have asked if you'd be willing to share your presentation after the fact. So we'll connect later. I know a lot of people are really excited about getting the access to all the slides. So I will connect with all of our speakers and get as many slideshows as possible to include in our follow-up email going out later this week. So yeah, for anyone that is interested in exploring CauseVox for your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign or crowdfunding, virtual events, and more, feel free to request a demo with us, and we'd be happy to chat with you for about a half hour, learn a little bit more about your organization, and see how CauseVox can best help. So yeah, thank you everyone that's been attending. It's been amazing. This whole experience has been fantastic, with just seeing how many of you are fundraising, what your tips and insights are, your answers to your polls, and of course, I love that the chat's so active and so much fun. So thank you all for staying with us throughout the whole summit.